Welcome to my show, Ali. What do you do, Ali?
So I work at United Response, which is a charity and a social care provider, and we deliver services across England and Wales. And I work as the head of public affairs, policy, and communications. So I look after the team that communicate about the impact of our work and work with politicians and work with our staff teams as well.
Right. Tell me about the My Vote, My Voice, and how it came about.
So My Vote, My Voice is a national campaign that's aiming to get as many people who have a learning disability or are autistic registered to vote and then voting in the general election. And we launched the campaign last year. We launched it in Parliament with an event, and it came about because United Response, Dimensions, MenCap, and lots of other organisations like McIntyre and all the people who signed up to our campaign have been doing lots of real work around voting before, but we've all been doing it in our own little ways. And I thought, rather than us all working individually, wouldn't it be so much more powerful if we all joined forces to create a campaign and a movement together? So that's how it came about.
Next question. Why is it important that people with a learning disability use their right to vote?
Firstly, we did some research. We did some research in 2019, and then we did some research this year. And this year we found out that still 22% of the general public don't know that people with learning disabilities have a right to vote. I think that needs to change. And we think unless people get out and use their right to vote, then still there might be all these misconceptions and people might know these things. And I think it's really important that we all feel like we've got an opportunity to have our voice heard. And I think voting is one of the best ways that you can do that and feel like you're contributing to not only your local area, but also how things are happening nationally.
I voted in my local election with Paul, and you came with me, didn't you?
Was, yeah.
And before I decided, didn't know what to do, so we sat down and looked at all the other parties, was it? And then we went up to the polling station where I live at Crown Hill, and I came in with an ID with those bus passes that we have.
Yeah,
I had one of them, and I went to see the lady and said, "I'm here to vote." So I showed my ID, this bus pass, and she said, "You have to be over 60."
That is part of the legislation in the Elections Act. A disabled person's bus pass is a valid form of ID to show in a polling station. So the experience you had then was a really bad one, because actually they should have accepted that as a form of ID. They shouldn't have told you the otherwise, really.
And they did said you can go, but then when I went to do the voting, there was no pictures or anything. So just like names, and then you have to put a cross. Then I did it, and the man said to me, "Oh, you can't fold it like that. They have to unfold it, you see." So they weren't very helpful at all, really, because they didn't have any pictures of the people that we were going to vote for, you see.
So I think there's lots of things like that would make it much easier for people to vote, and it would help people when they get into the polling station feel much more confident and comfortable to vote in the way that they want, because not everyone would want to have someone with them to choose. But I believe that the government should be doing all that they can to make voting as easy as possible for people.
Yeah, so that's my experience of going to voting.
Do you know, I think every time I've voted, I think I folded it up a couple of times, because actually that's what you do, don't you? Like that's something you put it in the box. So I think that was I don't think that was right of that man at all, and how he approached that. I don't know if you'd be happy to talk about your experience with either with the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, because they're quite interested to hear what people's experiences are so that they can improve it, or even to obviously to journalists. But maybe that's something we could talk about, because it's really important, I think, that these sort of experiences are heard, and then that's how we can sort of make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Well, no, true. Hope not. No.
Yeah.
Right, next question. What can staff do to help the people they support with voting?
First and foremost, is getting registered to vote. So if people were registered for the local elections, which happen in May, you won't have to register again. But we know that not everyone might have got registered. So firstly, we'd want people to help support them to register to vote. So you can either fill in a paper-based form and
Yeah.
then send that off, or you can fill in a form online. And you just need your national insurance ID. But we know that for some people, filling in forms online can be quite complicated and it can
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
hard. So
Mm.
actually, I think staff, if they can support people to do that, would be brilliant. And secondly, it's then about getting ready to vote and choosing how you want to vote. So some people really like going into the polling station, and that's part of how they like to vote. And as you know, there's lots of different things that you need to think about now when you
Yeah.
do go and vote in person. So that's making sure that you have the right ID,
Yeah.
and that could be a disabled person's bus pass, a driving license, or a passport. But it could also be, if you don't have any of those forms of ID, you can apply for something called a voter authority certificate. And
Oh, right.
again, that's something that you can do online.
Mm.
And you need to do it ahead of the election, so sooner rather than later. So staff, it would be really helpful. Support staff could help people to fill in that form just to make sure that they've got the right ID for voting in person. But also, if you don't want to go and vote in a polling station because maybe you're busy or you've got things to do on that day, you can apply to vote by post. And again, that's another form
Yeah.
to fill in. So there's
Mm.
lots and lots of form filling to do. And so I think anything that staff can do to support people.
What do people need to know about the upcoming general election?
So first and foremost, they need to know that they need to be registered to vote by the 18th
Mm.
of June if they want to vote in the general election. So things like manifestos are probably going to be published about 4 weeks before the general election, which doesn't leave too much time to have a
Fun.
read
Yeah.
through and think about
Mm.
what you want to vote for. But we've been at My Vote, My Voice, we've been writing to all of the parties and asking them to make sure that
Wow.
they produce easy read manifestos
Mm.
at the
Oh,
same
that's
time as the
interesting.
full
Yeah.
manifesto, so that
Mm.
people with learning disabilities have plenty of time to read and understand what the parties are calling for. Um, and I think, yeah, the most important thing is getting out and voting. It's your opportunity to have your voice heard. And so
Yeah.
just making sure that on the 4th, if you want to vote, yeah, that you do it that way.
Where can people find out more about My Vote, My Voice campaign?
You can head to our website, which is myvotemyvoice.org.uk. And on that
Mm.
website, we've got loads of different easy read resources all about voting. So everything that
Mm.
we've talked about around registering to vote, applying for a voter authority certificate, and voting in person or by post, there's lots of information there for people to read. But there's also information for support staff, again, about how to sort of talk about different political parties and what they stand for in a not in a biased way. So making sure that it's not favouring one party or the other.